Hi, this is Rob from failedmuso.com. Welcome along to the next of my series of video reviews, and this time we're going to be looking at the new one from UVI, which is The Beast. And I'd just like to say at this point that I've been reading a lot of the comments that we get back on the videos, and I'm really happy to see that a lot of people enjoy them and get out of them what I hope they'd get out of them, which is an idea of what the library sounds like, and of course how it looks and how it performs and how you get the stuff out of it. But also I'm quite mindful of some of the comments that have been on there, which have been all said in the nicest possible way, that maybe I should talk a bit less and play some more of the sounds, which I completely understand, clearly, because this is a sound library and you don't want to hear me talking too much. But of course I need to balance out a delivery of some information that is worthwhile and kind of puts it all into context. So I've taken on board your comments. Hopefully this will improve the matter. And, of course, do let me know in the comments section of the video down below. So this is the new one from UVI, the premier French sample library manufacturer, and this is the next one in their kind of range of sample libraries based on those giant, impressive synth stroke samplers of the late 70s and the early 80s. We've already had their take on the Fairlight and the Emulator 1 and Emulator 2, and this is their take on the NED Synclavier. If you're not familiar with the Synclavier, it was produced from around the mid-70s right through to the early 90s, at which point the company had pretty much wound down and was no longer operating. But the machines are still used to this day because they are that good and they are that well built. And I'll tell you some anecdotal stuff about that later. They predominantly focused on FM and additive synthesis, as well as sampling and hard disk recording. That was pretty much what the Synclavier did in essence. Of course, it did a whole lot more than that. And there was different versions. There was the Synclavier 1, 2 and 3. There was the 3200, the 6400, the 9600, the Tapeless Studio version. And in any of those combinations, you could have any kind of amount of different boards and functionality. So pretty much there wasn't definitive Synclaviers. They all had their own kind of configurations, which made them very, very unique indeed. And of course, they were very, very expensive. They were made from the highest quality materials, no expense was spared, and they utilized some of the very latest technology of the time. For example, the sampling functionality on a Synclavier was pretty much sample to disk and sample playback from hard disk, which had never been done before. And the reason it was done like that was because memory cost so much back in those days that Synclavier said, well, we don't want to skimp on the quality. We want to give as best quality as possible, but we can't with the amount of memory that we can fit in or that we can make it reasonably affordable. So they developed a way of doing it to hard disk, which of course nowadays is commonplace. It happens all the time. But this was back in the late 70s, and so it was a fairly new concept and never really been done before. And of course it went on to allow the Synclavier to be a tapeless recording studio, which again was a very new concept back then. Of course nowadays we do it all the time. We can record entire albums on our iPads or our laptops or even our iPhones, I guess. And by the way, other smartphones and tablets are available. But of course, you know, it was fairly revolutionary back in the day, and you could compose and produce entire pieces of music, entire albums of music on this one machine. And Frank Zappa was just one example of an artist who did that on numerous occasions. The machines were used by the elite of the music recording world at the time. Of course, Stevie Wonder had one, as he has one of everything pretty much. It was also used extensively by people like Trevor Horn in the ZTT Psalm Studios environment, and all of the massive hits that came out of that particular entity in the early 80s, like Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Art of Noise, Grace Jones's Slave to the Rhythm album, all produced heavily on a Synclavier. Depeche Mode used it, Jean-Michel Jarre used it, Kraftwerk used it, loads of people used it. They were very, very expensive, and so people like yourself and myself, unless of course you are Stevie Wonder or Jean-Michel Jarre, in which case hi and or bonjour, and hope you're enjoying the video. You and I couldn't afford this, and what UVI have done, just like the Darklight library and the emulation libraries is that they've taken the sound. So these aren't recreations of the actual instruments. You can't use this as you would a real Synclavier. What they've done is they've taken a huge amount of the sound and fitted them into this wonderful library and popped on top of them some really nice user interfaces using the scripting technology of MachFive and the UVI Workstation. The library costs $199 stroke €199. Is available from uvi.net as a download or as a DVD, which I believe is a little bit cheaper if you do the DVD. I think it's something like €179 for the DVD plus postage and packing. So it all depends. I mean, nowadays with modern internet connections, a 4 gig download, which is about what this is, isn't too bad and is pretty easy to do. Doesn't take too long. It works, as I said before, in MachFive, which is what we're going to use today, and it also works in the free UVI Workstation, which you can again download from uvi.net, and you can use that either as a standalone instrument, or it also comes as a plug-in for VST, audio units, RTAS and MAS as well. So whatever your choice of sequencer, pretty much all of them are covered. We're going to use the MachFive, which is something I've just recently acquired, and I've been very impressed with this. And if you are interested in MachFive, then just head over to motu.com and have a look at it over there. I'll be doing a review of this hopefully in the next few weeks. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, stay tuned and keep an eye on the blog. Let's crack on though. Let's get into the sounds and see exactly what we've got to play with. So, as ever, it's a kind of a Mac-like directory structure here. So we're going to choose the Beast, and then we have these 3 sections. And again, this is very familiar if you're looking at UVI libraries on a regular basis. We've got Beast FM2, which looks after pretty much all of the FM type sounds that the Synclavier produced. Then we've got Beast Terminal, which looks after a lot of the sampling sounds. And then we've got Beast Box, which is the rhythm section, which is a pretty standard feature in UVI libraries. So let's crack through into FM2. And you see we've got the standard type of sections here. We click on the section and we see the voices, and we can double click on the voice and that loads up. And let's have a look at that front panel. So FM2 uses the design cues of the original Synclavier keyboard, which was wooden surround. It had this black brushed aluminium faceplate beset with all of these glowing red buttons. Here's a bit of trivia for you. Those glowing red buttons were chosen after the engineers visited a B-52 bomber. They were looking for buttons that would work and never fail. And of course, you're looking at a serious nuclear bomber like the B-52, then you're going to want stuff that's never going to fail on you. And so they chose the exact same source for these buttons. They glow bright red when they're activated, and they don't glow when they're deactivated. And as you can see here, we've got a whole range of buttons representing all the standard features that we get on a UVI library. So we've got the amplitude and filter envelopes just over here. We've got the filter choice settings. We have some stereo settings, some overdrive. We can allocate various things to the mod wheel. We can mess around with the pitch as well, and also there's some direct controls over the phaser, delay, reverb and bit crusher effects. And of course we can add in more effects sitting in the background using the effects section of MachFive or UVI Workstation. You might think, well, where are the rotary encoders to change, say for example here, the reverb setting? Well, the reverb setting we can turn on and off, and you can see that the red buttons with the universal international symbol for power, which is that circle with a little line through it, you can just click those and turn them on and off. But where's the rotary encoder? Well, actually it's here, and as you can see there's this little red line just down to the left hand corner here. If I click and hold and then drag on this particular button here, then as you can see it does rotate, and it actually glows brighter the higher you go, which is a kind of a cool effect. Okay, so your rotary encoders are all there. They're just cleverly disguised as Synclavier buttons. Now, of course, one of the most distinguishing features of the Synclavier keyboard was the big silver rotary encoder on the far left-hand side, which has been recreated lovingly here in this kind of aluminium effect here. And of course, on the original Synclavier, it was just pretty much a data entry wheel, and it was just plus or minus, depending on the setting you chose with the buttons. Then this red LED display you could affect by twiddling this knob here. But actually what it's been used for in this instrument is this thing called FMizer. Essentially, it FMizes the sounds that you've chosen, and that is to say that it uses a true FM synthesis engine that comes built into either UVI Workstation or MachFive to give it frequency modulation effects, and it's probably something that's best heard rather than best explained in words. So we'll show you a little bit of that in just a moment. So without further ado, let's start digging through some of the sounds that we've got here, and I think you'll probably recognise this particular sound. And I bet there's not one of you watching this that isn't doing a little drum beat in your head, and then you're going to go and do a bit of a moonwalk and high pitched. Yeah, you know what I mean. That, of course, is the iconic sound from the beginning of Michael Jackson's "Beat It" from his Thriller album, and it's appropriately called Iconic Gong here. And it's probably one of the most well-known Synclavier sounds that there ever has been. So, yep. That's in here, and there are a whole raft of sounds in here that as you're going through this library you think, much like Dark Light and Emulation, you think, oh yeah, I know that, I've heard that, I recognise that, and then you start hearing the music and it's just great. It's a real nostalgia trip, and I'm a massive nostalgia fan. So, what else have we got in terms of sounds within the FM section? Well, of course, FM was really good for lots of bass sounds. It had a kind of organ type clicky feel to a lot of their basses. Let's just drop this down an octave, and this one's a particular favourite of mine because it kind of has that woody feel to it. Really like that one. And then you've got kind of a typical fat FM bass here. So you kind of get the idea. There's some really nice sounds in here that are very FM. And that's kind of metallic-y, bell-like sounds. Of course, bells is the next section. We have some really nice bell-type sounds in here. Do like that one. What else have we got? Let's have a listen to church bells, which don't really sound like real church bells, but nice nonetheless. It's quite a familiar sound. Harpy bell. And we've got tangerine bell. Nice feel to it. Original bells. And we've got an Insane FM section. I don't quite know what Insane FM is, but I guess it's something like this. Disto Land is quite a nice one. Violin Under Pressure, kind of. I do like this one actually. looking for sounds that really cut through a mix with a bit of impact, then there's a good selection for you there. Keyboards, of course, focus mainly on electric pianos, FM pianos, something that FM does very, very well indeed. But don't expect any cheesy DX7 type piano sounds in here. These are all fairly unique. What else we got here? Miscellaneous always throws up some nice ones in here. So Corgelis, we kind of imagine this is going to be kind of a choral type sound that's kind of Vangelis-y inspired. I'll leave that one up to you. Strummed is quite a nice one. Works quite nice down in the lower end of the register there. And there's a harmonica type sound in here. And then we go into the orchestral section, of course, remembering this is kind of FM sound, so we're not looking at real big fat orchestras here. We're looking at stuff that sounds a bit like this. And we've got some other orchestrally type sounds here. Orchestral hit, this is something you'd probably expect to see in the sample section, and yes, there are lots of those. But there's a kind of an FM version of that. And of course organs was something that was done very well by FM synthesis. And let's have a look to the pipe organ. There's some nice ones in there, and then of course you've got the synth sounds. Of course we've already had the iconic gong. Let's have a listen to Marion. We've got some strange voices. And some voices that aren't so strange, I guess. Now let's show you some of the effects that we can have with that FMizer. So let's take this particular voice here, called Voices. Nice and soft and smooth. Well, let's ramp up this FMizer here. And all of a sudden we've kind of made it metallic and bell-like. And we can mess around with the large FMizer knob here. So that's what that does. It kind of metallicizes the sound and gives it that kind of metallic bell-like FM quality, which of course FM is very much known for. One of the other things that I've been a little bit guilty of ignoring is the Sparkverg plugin that comes with UVI Workstation 2.0.6 and MachFive 3.1, which are the latest releases of these sample players and samplers. And it's Sparkverb, which is essentially a reverb unit, but I've not really played with it a great deal, and it was with this particular library that I started to get into it a bit more. And let me show you kind of what it's very good at doing. I mean, it can do a lot of stuff, and it's probably warrants a kind of review of its own. But let me show you, for example, if we take Insane FM section and let's choose, I don't know, let's go for that one, Voice is Insane. Now this is kind of a you'd probably use that, maybe not as a pad, because it sounds kind of too cluttered and messy. You'd probably use it as a lead or maybe a bass sound on its own. But if we go in and we switch the Spark Verb on and then just turn that up quite a way, then listen to what it does to the sound. Really nice. It's a really nice reverb, and I've kind of discovered it with this particular library, and I'm now going back through and seeing what it does to all the other sounds. At its simplest level there, it can take a very harsh sound and make it into a very lush and evolving type pad sound in very short space of time. Just turn it on and turn the dial. So I'd encourage you to experiment with that, and of course you can download UVI Workstation completely free of charge, and also a small sample library to go with that, a demonstration library, and start messing around with it in there. See what you think. I think it's very useful, and I think they should do more with that. So that's Beast FM 2, that's the FM section covered. So now let's have a look at Terminal. Terminal pretty much covers the sounds that were in the Synclavier that were originating from the sampler. And again, we've got the kind of categories we'd expect to see. So we have some bass, bells, brass, drums, effects, guitars, hits and chords, keyboards, etc, etc. Let's start from the bottom this time. Let's live a bit dangerously. Let's go and have a look at Voice in Space. Which is quite nice. And then you've got this one. Of course, if you're an Art of Noise fan, then that sounds very familiar. We've also got multi-Rs in here. Full chorale. More fuller sound than the one we've had before. Ethereal voices. Not a huge amount of difference between these sounds, but it's kind of a less synthesized version there. Let's go up to the synth section. We've got some nice pad type sounds in here. Called contrasynth. Kind of a bowed effect in there. Ominous synth, which sounds strangely ominous. The string section here, well, you've got your standard cellos and double bass, and there's a nice harp sound in here. I always do like a good harp. That sounds, do you remember Tomb Raider, the very first Tomb Raider? There was that kind of harp sound going on. I don't know whether it's this particular one, but it's very evocative of that. Of course, what you're not going to get with these these particular sounds are really fantastic string sections, because these were never designed to be really fantastic string sections. If you want that, go and get a specifically recorded string library. The sampled sounds on the Beast or Darklight or Emulation or any of those kind of libraries, they were sampled into those original machines, and those original machines coloured them and made them a little bit different, and that's what you're buying here. So if you buy this and you go through the string section, that doesn't sound very authentic, you're missing the point. The point is that this is a string section sampled through pieces of old technology that did things to the sound, not because they intentionally wanted to do that, but because that was the limitations of the technology at the time. So it's passable as a string section, but it's not really full authentic strings, and of course that's not what this is designed for, so don't think you're going to get that. Percussion, there's all sorts in here. Percussion menus, wherever you see the menu in here, and you can just ignore that pop-up, that's because it's a development version. Percussion menu. Something behind every note on the keyboard. There's lots to go through. The keyboard section, so we've got some organs, we've also got some pianos, prepared pianos. Oh, that reminds me, the UVI library Ercan prepared piano is next on my list, so if you like a bit of John Cage, then do keep coming back and having a look for that one, because that's going to be a real cracking library to go through. So a whole bunch of piano sounds in there. We've got hits and chords. There's all sorts of sounds in here. For example, lots of different things in here. Oh, and I haven't shown you the interface, which is very, very similar to the Darklight interface, in that it uses that green on black screen, and the layout is virtually identical. And these are all the same settings as we saw on the FM synth and any other UVI synth. So we've got our amplitude and filter envelopes, and we've got our mod wheel assignments and our overdrive and stereo effects. And over on the right hand side here, phaser delay, reverb and bit crusher, which we can turn on or off and affect the dryness or the wetness therein using the controls there. So let's go back in and see what else we've got here. We've got some guitars. There's some really really nice guitars in here. This one I really do like. And if I'm not mistaken, you can hear that one on Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Welcome to the Pleasure Dome somewhere throughout that album. It's a very... do like that sound. Really do like that sound. What else we got? Guitar stuff in here. Effects. The effects are very good. I do like the effects sections here. They've got something behind every key that's different. Really good effects section. I've said this before, I kind of used to skip through that and sometimes never even touched it, but these have made me change my mind, and actually the effects section is somewhere I go pretty early doors when getting into this. Dolphin Stress is a really good one if you want to mess with your dog's mind. And you listen to this, especially up here in the higher registers, but down below takes on a whole new character, and you can see why bands like Depeche Mode love this keyboard, because of the sounds that it could produce. Drum sounds, well, yeah, they're drum sounds really. There's a lot of electronic drum sounds in here, kind of acoustic samples of drum sounds, nothing too spectacular to mention. We've got some brass sounds in here. This one I do like. Always brings a smile to my face. what else we got here? We've got trumpets, and what was that one that I really liked? Was it this one here? Trumpet stack. It's kind of a nice. I always did like kind of those 80s or 90s sampled horns. They just did something different to the sound. I'm always a sucker for a big French horn, which really could have lots of different meanings, but we won't go there. And then we've got bells and mallets, typical stuff in here. We've got prepared dulcimers and gamelans. These kind of sound unusual. And various other bits in there. We've got some bass sounds in here. That slap. I think you'll probably recognise that from a whole bunch of sounds, a bunch of songs. And that's the terminal. So lots of sounds that were predominantly originating from the sample section of the Synclavier. The last section I'm going to show you is Beast Box, which is just one instrument. So we just load that up, and it's about 1288 key groups, as we can see there, and loads up into a very familiar interface again. So we've got the wood paneling and the black brushed aluminium background and the red glowing buttons. And if you're familiar with UVI's rhythm machines that they have in their libraries, this is no different. It just set out slightly differently to match the style. What we've got is 12 tracks, 12 independent 16-step sequences, each of which can have their own voice allocated to them, but UVI kind of restrict the range of voices. So basically track 1 is kick drums, track 2 is clap and snare sounds, tracks 3 and 4 are hi-hat sounds, and so on and so forth. But there are so many sounds in here that you can mess around with. So how does this work? Again, very simple, very familiar. This is track 1. We can turn it on or off. We can choose from a whole host of sounds, and as we drop through there you can see there's a lot to choose from, and we've gone out of shot already. So you can choose your sound, you can choose the volume, you can choose the pan and the tune, the filter settings, the overdrive, decay, and aux 1 and aux 2 can be assigned to things like reverb and other effects. So they're just kind of open for you to mess around with. Then we've got here the 16 steps represented by the glowing red buttons. So if you want to activate a step in here, we just click on it and it glows bright red. That's full velocity. If we click on it again, it goes sort of half red, which indicates half velocity, and click it one more time and it turns it off. So it's the kind of traditional accenting that we'd find on old-fashioned drum machines and step sequences of the day. Program in your track, and that's the first row of buttons here. The second row of buttons belongs to track 2. And so track 2 sits here, and this has got a clap, and again all the same controls. The lights are just above there, and then we've got tracks 3 and 4. To get to tracks 5 and 8, we just flick this switch down, and then there's 5 to 8, and one more step down gives us 9 to 12. So there's our 12 independent sequences, and of course they're completely independent sonically as well. So if you want lots of reverb on the kick but not so much on the snare, that's entirely doable. We've got a groove control over here, which just gives it a little bit of a groove, and then we've got the clear function, and we've also got a start and stop button here. Underneath on the keyboard, represented by the blue keys, are all the individual sounds that have been chosen. So here is the kick, and here is the clap, and here is the hi-hat closed and the hi-hat open, and those are there. And all the other sounds are in here as well. So if you want to just choose the sounds and then sequence them in your own sequencer, then fire away, off you go. But of course also here at C3, represented by the red key, we can start the loop that is programmed in already by all these illuminated red lights, and by letting go it stops. So hit it to start, let it go to stop, as so. Of course, if you just want to start this thing going as maybe a part of a musing process where you just want to start to get a rhythm going and then start messing around with other sounds, you can just click the start button here and it runs until you turn it off, just like that. So we can choose from all sorts of sounds, and as you can see here, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of sounds, be they cymbals, snares, and we can go over here to tracks 5 and 8. So we've got lots of toms in there. You see, there's just so much stuff in here for you to choose from. So much stuff. And then we've got percussion instruments there, and then 9 to 12 are reserved for FM type sounds. So all of these are FM generated sounds in these last 4 tracks here, so you can supplement if you wish. And there you go. And then we've also got the presets here, so there's a whole bunch of presets that we can choose from. I've just gone out of shot there, but trust me, I'm down the bottom here, and let's actually start this going and flick through some of these. And there you go. So there's plenty to choose from in the rhythm department. So pretty much all your bases are covered. Rhythms, and you've got sample sounds and FM sounds. It's a really, really wide-ranging library, and I really, really do like this. And so this brings me to the end of the review here and to my conclusions. There really isn't, in my opinion, a library of Synclavier sounds as comprehensive and as flexible and as usable as this out there today. I know of some sample libraries that contain a handful or smattering of Synclavier sounds. I am aware of some sample CDs that have been around for a long, long while that have Synclavier sounds in them. And there are some very good ones, but there are some very limited ones. There doesn't seem to be quite the range of this. This really is probably the best Synclavier library that you can get today. That said, again, it looks fantastic. UVI have done their typically fantastic job on the user interface and making it look like the instrument that they are paying homage to, and it just feels really nice to use. It works very, very well. It's very, very familiar, and it sounds, again, typically excellent. The guys at UVI do some fantastic work when it comes to the sound quality and the sample quality and the looping and the sustaining in there. It's all, it's very, very good indeed. Whether you use UVI Workstation, whether you use MachFive, you're going to get a fantastic sounding library. Of course, with MachFive, you can just do a little bit more with it. You don't get any kind of extra features. It's just the tools that MachFive gives you to mess around become a bit more powerful. So you won't be missing out on anything in terms of the library itself if you use the UVI Workstation, which of course is completely free of charge. I think I might have said that already. I'll say it again. UVI.net. Go and get the UVI Workstation. Even if you only use the demo library, I think you'll begin to appreciate what it can do, and you might start dipping your toe in the water and taking advantage of UVI's libraries to work with it. And I'm trying to persuade more and more people to write libraries in this format, because I think it's far easier to program and to script than certain other instruments out there that I could mention but probably won't. I think you know what I mean. So I'm always trying to get more people on board with this because it just really is very, very good stuff. And I feel sometimes embarrassed by constantly saying how good this UVI stuff is, but I'm just being honest. It really is very, very good. The only criticism that I might ever have is that it might be a little bit too expensive for most people, but I think if you're serious about your music and you're serious about these kinds of sounds and this degree of control, then yeah, it's worth every penny or every cent, whatever you might be paying for it. It's all iLok protected, so let me just remind you of that. Everything that UVI do and MOTU do is iLok protected, so you are going to need an iLok key, but once you've got one, you can store hundreds of licenses on it, so it's a single one-off low-cost investment, and it protects you and it protects the manufacturer, which is always good because it then enables them to carry on doing this kind of thing for you and me. So there you go, that is The Beast from UVI.net. If you want to check out their demos, I really would encourage you to do so because it's great music from accomplished professional musicians, not this geek that's buried away in the darkest recesses of East Anglia in the UK. Some really good musicians have done some cracking demonstrations, so if you want to hear what this can do in anger, go over to uvi.net, or of course you can come over to failmuso.com/blog, look for the review of The Beast on there, and I've linked to everything there, including the promotional videos, all the demonstrations. There's a whole bunch of images there, and of course there's the written review, which contains all sorts of information, hopefully that you'll find very, very interesting. So there you go, that is The Beast from UVI. This is Rob from failmuso.com. Thanks ever so much for watching. I hope you got what you wanted from this video. Please do leave your comments down below or over on the blog. They're all very, very welcome, and you all take care, and we'll see you next time, which will hopefully be for the MachFive demonstration and also Ercan prepared piano. Thanks ever so much for watching, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.